In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to start an LLC as a DoorDash driver step by step, and more importantly, whether you even need one in the first place. We'll go through everything you need to know, including the setup process, the cost, how long it takes, and some of the common mistakes that can end up costing you money if you're not careful. Now, a lot of people start DoorDash as a side hustle, just trying to make some extra income, but as you start earning more, working more hours, and treating it like a real business, things start to change. You're dealing with taxes, expenses, liability, and income tracking, and that's where your business structure starts to matter a lot more. So in this guide, I'm going to break everything down clearly so you know exactly what to do and whether it actually makes sense for your situation. And if you'd rather avoid dealing with the paperwork yourself, I'll also explain why many drivers choose to use an LLC formation service to handle the process properly. If you want to check out the one I recommend, I do have a discount link for Northwest Registered Agent in the description and pinned comment below the video. Before we jump into the steps though, let's answer the most important question first. So the short answer is no, you don't need an LLC to drive for DoorDash. You can operate as a sole proprietor, which is what the vast majority of drivers do. But just because you can doesn't necessarily mean it's always the best option. Now, when you're doing DoorDash casually, maybe just a few hours a week, the risk is relatively low and keeping things simple usually makes sense. But once you start doing it more seriously, maybe full-time or using it as a major income source, your situation starts to change. You're driving more, you're earning more, and your exposure increases. Now, while DoorDash does provide some insurance coverage, it's limited and it doesn't always cover every situation. If something happens like an accident, damage, or a dispute, there are scenarios where you could still be personally responsible. That's why some drivers look into forming an LLC, because it creates a separation between you and your business activity. But here's the important part. An LLC doesn't magically eliminate all risk, especially in a driving-based business, which is something people often misunderstand. So the real question isn't just whether you need one, it's whether it actually makes sense for your situation. And that leads to the next question. When should you actually start an LLC as a DoorDash driver? Now, this is where things get a bit more practical, because for many drivers, an LLC isn't necessary right away. If you're just testing DoorDash, making a bit of extra income, or doing it occasionally, it's usually not worth the extra setup cost. But if you're earning consistently, treating it like a business, or planning to expand into other income streams like Uber Eats or delivery services, then it starts to make more sense. Another situation is if you're thinking about building something bigger. For example, if you want to transition into a delivery-based business, hire drivers, or scale beyond just yourself, then having an LLC becomes much more relevant. And then there's the organization side. Some people choose an LLC simply because they want to separate their finances, track everything properly, and treat it like a real business. So it really comes down to how serious you are about it and where you see it going. Now, if you decide that an LLC does make sense for you, the next step is knowing how to set one up properly. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through the exact process from start to finish. These are the 6 steps you'll need to follow to get your LLC set up properly, and once you understand these, the whole process becomes much easier to manage. So starting with the first step, let's talk about choosing your business name. Your LLC name needs to be unique in your state and include a designator like LLC or limited liability company. Now for DoorDash drivers, this doesn't necessarily need to match anything publicly since you're not branding a storefront, but it's still worth choosing something clean and professional. Before you file anything, you'll need to check your state's business database to make sure your name is available. Because if it's already taken, your application can be rejected, which means you'll have to redo that step. And this is one of those small things that can slow you down more than expected. That's one reason many drivers choose to use a service like Northwest Registered Agent, since their system checks name availability automatically and helps you avoid those issues. If you want to check them out, I do have a discount link in the description and pinned comment below the video. Now, once your business name is sorted, the next step is setting up your registered agent. Every LLC is required to have a registered agent with a physical address in the state. This person or company is responsible for receiving legal documents and official notices on behalf of your business. Now, while you can act as your own registered agent, many drivers choose not to, mainly because your address becomes public. And if you value privacy, that's something to consider. So this is where services like Northwest Registered Agent come in, because they provide a registered agent address and handle that for you. Now, once you've got your registered agent in place, you're ready for the next step that actually makes your LLC official. So this is where you officially create your LLC by filing the Articles of Organization with your state. This document includes basic details about your business, like your name, registered agent, and address. Now, the form itself isn't overly complicated, but it does need to be accurate because even small mistakes can delay your approval or cause issues later on. And this is another point where some drivers choose to use a formation service just to make sure everything is done correctly the first time. Now, once your LLC is officially formed, there are still a few important things you'll need to set up internally. So the next step is creating your operating agreement. This outlines how your business will be run, even if you're the only owner. Helps keep everything structured and can be useful if you ever deal with legal or financial situations down the line. Now, after that, you'll need to get your business set up from a tax and banking perspective. So the next step is getting your EIN, which is your business tax ID. You'll need this if you want to open a business bank account or structure your finances more formally. The good news is that it's free and it usually takes just a few minutes to apply online. Now, once you've got your EIN, you can move on to setting up your finances properly. Opening a business bank account helps separate your business income from your personal finances. Even for DoorDash, this can make tracking income, expenses, and taxes much easier. Now that you've seen the full setup process, let's talk about the cost involved. So the cost of starting an LLC depends on your state, but typically you're looking at anywhere from around $50 to a few $100s for the filing fee. You may also have ongoing costs like annual fees or registered agent services. Now for DoorDash drivers specifically, you also have expenses like fuel, maintenance, insurance, and vehicle wear and tear. So adding an LLC into the mix is another cost to consider, and for some drivers it may not be worth it depending on their income level. But for others, especially those earning consistently, it can make sense as part of a more structured approach. Now, alongside costs, the next thing people usually want to know is how long this all takes. In terms of timing, most LLCs are approved within a few days to a few weeks depending on your state. Some states are faster, especially if you file online, while others take a bit longer. And like with most steps in this process, delays can happen if there are any mistakes in your filing. Now, this is one of the areas where using a formation service can make things noticeably quicker and easier because they help make sure everything is submitted correctly the first time. But I'll go into that in a bit more detail later on. Now, before you go ahead and file everything, it's also worth knowing what mistakes to avoid. One of the biggest mistakes drivers make is assuming an LLC will solve all their problems. Another is not understanding how taxes work as a self-employed driver. And then there's mixing personal and business finances, which can create confusion and weaken your structure. So understanding what an LLC does and doesn't do is really important before setting one up. Now, once your LLC is approved, there are still a few final steps to take. You'll want to finalize your operating agreement, obtain your EIN, and open your business bank account. You may also want to start tracking your income and expenses more carefully. Now, as you can see, there are quite a few moving parts even after the LLC is formed. Now, this is usually the point where people either get stuck or start second guessing if they've done everything correctly. So at this point, it's worth taking a closer look at what using a service actually looks like. A lot of drivers get to this stage and realize that while the process is doable, there are quite a few details that can go wrong if you're not careful. Now, this is where services like Northwest Registered Agents start to make a lot more sense because they guide you through the process, handle the filings, and help make sure everything is done correctly from the start. And for a lot of people, that peace of mind alone is worth it, especially when you're trying to set things up properly without wasting time or making mistakes. So if you decide to go this route, the process is very straightforward. You click the discount link in the description or pinned comment below the video, choose your state, enter your business name, and follow the guided steps. They handle your registered agent, file your documents, and make sure everything is submitted correctly. And in many cases, this ends up saving time and money by avoiding mistakes and delays. And again, if you want to check them out, I do have a discount link for Northwest Registered Agent in the description and pinned comment below the video. Now, with that in mind, let's wrap everything up. So overall, an LLC can make sense for DoorDash drivers in certain situations, but it's definitely not something everyone needs right away. The key is understanding your own situation, your income level, and your long-term goals. If you found this helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more guides like this. And if you want the easiest way to get your LLC set up properly, check out the discount link for Northwest Registered Agent in the description and pinned comment below the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.